1999 Rugby World Cup Final between the Wallabies and France. Bit of a weird game. A whole ton of penalties, that is for certain. I just watched it last night. Did the old live stream while watching it. It was pretty much the full game. They did edit out, I guess just for time-saving purposes, some of the moments which nothing's really going on. Like when a kicker was preparing his kick, they cut out any time where someone was running the ball on, setting up the ball, pretty much cut to when they were taking the kick. Likewise, getting lineouts and whatnot set up. So yeah, it was over pretty quickly. And a bit of a weird game. Some people have told me before it was boring, and some people have told me it was a great match. I think it's somewhere in between. It was pretty messy. The penalty count was fairly high, 16-12. 16 penalties conceded by the French, 12 by the Wallabies. And obviously the Wallabies capitalised on that for sure, and the French paid the price because you can see the amount of penalties that the Wallabies accumulated, getting 35 points. In the end, it was a bit of a hiding in terms of that scoreline being what it was. But yeah, you can't deny that the Wallabies were deserved winners on that day. And it was quite a contrast because prior to this game, I watched the 99 semi-final between this French team and Australia. No, sorry, and New Zealand. Wish it was Australia. God, the way that result went. Yeah, that one was a pretty tough watch as a New Zealand fan. The French were absolutely on form. And I said it in the stream, I can't help but wonder whether they kind of played their final the week before because they just weren't up to that same level with the French, and the Aussies, for the most part, just had the better of the game. That being said, the French did get the first points of the game through a penalty. It was after like a minute. So within no time, it's 3-0 to the French, but the Aussies pinged them back on 4 minutes, so it's 3 apiece. There's a bit of handbags. So the game, is pretty tense. It's a World Cup final. That's kind of what you expect. The Aussies kicked their penalty and it went wide. I did look up the stats of this game afterwards, and thankfully they actually had a remarkable amount of stats. It's been hard to find the stats in the previous World Cup games that I've watched, like the finals 95, 91, 87. There's been virtually nothing in the way of stats, but they had pretty extensive stats for this. The accuracy of which I'm not 100% because it said both sides had 100% goal kicking, and they certainly didn't. This is from ESPN, who's usually pretty good, but they did miss a penalty wide. John Eales got yellow carded, but in 1999, yellow card doesn't mean 10 minutes in the bin. It just means it's a caution. So he got cautioned. There's no 14 on 15 or anything. So he got yellow carded as a caution, much the way they do it in football, soccer now. France kicked the resulting penalty on 11 minutes to make it 6-3, but on 14 minutes the Aussies levelled it up again, 6 apiece with another penalty. So you can see it's just La Maison and Burke just trading kicks, and it's going back and forth. France, between those two penalties, I don't know what minute it was because there's no time displayed on the screen. It was between the 14th minute penalty and the 24th minute penalty, which is to follow. France actually had a decent chance, probably the best first chance of scoring a try. They knocked on after a nice little cross kick move. It was close, but they weren't able to hang on to the ball. If they get that try, maybe this game goes a different direction, but it's not to be. And Australia on 24 minutes do take a lead with another penalty to make it 9 points to 6. Burke misses another one a bit later, but he gets one before halftime to make it 12-6 going into the sheds at halftime. So no tries in the first half, pretty much just exchanging penalties, but the Aussies are starting to look the more threatening of the sides, despite the fact that the French were probably the closest ones to score. France at the start of the second half take a long shot at goal. Must be 47, 48 metres, but it goes wide. It had the distance, but not quite. And then Australia kick another one on 45 to make it 15-6, and that's when it's starting to look pretty dangerous. The French tried to take a shot at a drop goal, but again, that one missed. But they did kick a penalty on 51 to make it 15-9. So just as the Aussies are starting to pull away, the French kind of bring it back. As they bring it back, the Aussies take it back away with a penalty on 58 to make it 18-9. French bring it back again with one on 60 to make it 18-12. But that's the finish of the French scoring on the hour mark. The rest of it is all the Aussies on 64 minutes. They make it 21-12. And then finally, Ben Tune on 65 gets the first try of the final. It was a good try as well. Like, if you're going to wait an hour in a World Cup final for a try, you might as well wait for a good one. Gregan pretty much sets it up by, he's going to go open side, but then he turns around and goes blindside. And Ben Tune's able to put on a bit of gas and strength and goes over in the corner to make it 28-12. France have another chance to, at this point again, they're looking probably beaten, but they have a 5-meter attacking line-out and they lose it. Like, the French line-out operated pretty well. I think it was 85%, but that was one of the ones they missed. 5-meter attacking line-out went straight to the Aussie player, so they weren't able to capitalise. And then the Aussies, with their kind of final attacking play, put Owen Finnegan over after a little line-out move. He was running towards the line looking for people in support of him. And even the commentators was just like, just go, just run. And eventually he was like, the hell with it, I'm just going to keep going. And he did. And he went over for a try. So that was another nail in the coffin for the French. And great conversion, for especially the previous one for the Tune try. But another conversion makes it 35 points to 12. So that's the final score. Pretty deserved win for the Wallabies. First team to win the World Cup a second time, because it was New Zealand 87, Australia 91, South Africa 95, and then the first one for a team to get it done twice was the Wallabies back in 1999. And I got to admit, like, I kind of feel bad when comparing some of the current Wallabies guys to the guys back in the days, because they had a proper golden generation. I mean, this is just some of the guys I noted down: Burke, Horan, Larkham, Gregan, Eels, Kefu, like a bunch of just world-class players all at that same time. Yeah, it's not easy to replicate that kind of thing, especially in a sporting environment like Australia, where it is very competitive for people to join the game. But man, that was a really good side and a much-deserved win. Some of the key stats which illustrate just kind of how dominant they were in this game. I couldn't find possession and territory because it said, again, not all the stats were 100%, but it said Australia had 100% possession. Don't think that's probably quite right. But defenders beaten: Australia 28, France 14. Clean breaks: Australia 10, France 3. Turnovers conceded: France had 19, Australia had 13. So Australia doing some good attacking work with the ball, and the French coughing up too much pill. And the Australians were kicking pretty effectively. There was a bit of that. I mean, it's a final, so you expect teams to kind of play it a bit cautiously. You don't want to play it on your own end. The Aussies kicked 29 times from hand, the French 18, and probably more effectively as well. Neither side, and it's maybe a bit of a different one from all the previous World Cup finals I've watched, being 87, 91, and 95. I'm not speaking about ones after that. But in all the other finals, it seems like the lineouts have been a bit of a mess, and maybe that's because they weren't doing lifting. But with this World Cup, they had guys lifting, and the line-up percentages were a lot higher. Australia 92, France 85. So previously, the side who's lost each final has had a bit of a shocking line-out, like the All Blacks in 95, the French in 87. So England in 91, man, it was terrible. So yeah, this is a bit of a break with that kind of tradition. But again, the game was changing at that point. They were still doing the kicks from the ground for the kickoff. And like I mentioned, the yellow cards were a caution rather than time in the bin. They still had injury time. Like, this was scored on 80, and the game went on for about another 8 minutes. This was already an injury time try. But I guess because they didn't stop the clock back in those days. So it's kind of, again, like soccer or football works these days. So they were in referee's time for quite some time. There was nobody smoking that I could see, which is a bit of a difference in 87, 91 and 95. You've seen at least one person on camera smoking in the crowd. Maybe that was starting to change by 99. No pitch invasion after the end of the game, but again, that was like 95. They didn't have it in that game either. So, yeah. Other stats, individuals, like Burke had 25 points. That's amazing. He had 57 run meters and 5 defenders beaten, which was the number one Aussie. But both of the fullbacks, Carbajosa, the French fullback, he was the number one run meter getter for the game with 63. So both the fullbacks with all that kicking, taking a lot of ball, taking a few steps maybe before they run it or kick it. So I think they got a fair few kind of free meters. But yeah, he had a clean break to the French fullback. Yeah. Run meters for the totals for the teams. Australia had 351, France had 292. So again, Australia edged kind of all the key stats. Levermont, though, was the top tackler of the game. He had 14 out of 15. And the two Aussie guys were Eels and Keefe, I think both had 8 out of 9. So I would imagine the Aussies had 55-60% possession. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think clearly from those stats it shows the Aussies had the better of the game overall. No drop goals in this game. Like I mentioned, there was one attempt, but nobody scored any drop goals, which makes a big change from the 95 final. Was good to see a couple of tries at the end, but yeah. After Australia got out to, I guess, maybe 21-12 on 64 minutes, that pretty much looked like it. And then the Ben Tune try was it as well. To their credit, though, the French guys did keep playing the whole game. Even though they were beaten, they were attacking and attacking and attacking as best they could. Just couldn't quite have the same, I guess, cohesion or the bounce of the ball, tackles being busted. Just wasn't going their way like it was the previous week when a lot of stuff really went their way. Not as many box kicks, I noticed as well. Like back in those days, they didn't seem to do a whole lot of box kicking. I think there were 6 kicks from scrum halves in the whole game. 4 for the Aussies, 2 for the French. So, yeah, the game has certainly changed a lot since 1999. But it was certainly a bit of a good watch for me. The next one on the cards is the 2003 Rugby World Cup Final. I have to watch that at some point. That one feels a lot more fresh in my memory than any of the other ones. I guess because in my mind I was kind of a kid. I wasn't that much of a kid in 99, but I don't think I watched this game. I don't remember watching it if I watched it. But yeah, from 2003, I think I should have a bit of a clearer memory because I would have been like, 20? So 19? So more of like an adult, whereas everything else was kind of my childhood. So yeah, it'll be interesting to go back and watch that one. But yeah, congratulations to 1999 Wallabies side full of legends. Good result, good Rugby World Cup win. John Eales got to lift the cup at the end, which was good for them. And the French, it's the second World Cup final where they couldn't get the job done, but they had played one heck of a game the week before. Anyway, guys, I know a few guys in the stream either were at this game or remember this game pretty clearly. If you guys have got any other thoughts about this one, do let us know. And yeah, I'll see you again for the next one. Cheers, guys. Stay safe. Bye.